Hey folks, thought I would do some quick feedback on the developer playlist. This is with the changes. I'll just go through one by one with kind of some quick thoughts. I won't keep this one too long. So for those that don't know, there's been a new playlist. Some things have been changed. I played it for around 5 hours on stream yesterday, and I played an hour then of the regular mode. That way I could really get a feel of, once I'd played 5 hours of the dev playlist, if I went back and I played the current game mode, I would be able to think like, oh, this feels so much worse, or this feels better, you know, and figure out what I really felt. Because if you're only playing the developer playlist and you don't play the original, it's hard to judge what's going on. So, for those that don't know, this is what happened in the playlist. Bullet magnetism from the aim down sights and the hip fire got changed. This means that when you aimed sort of to the right of somebody, previously where you'd shoot, it would hit them. It no longer does. This is obviously a big change, and it's a beneficial change to the game. I noticed this straight away when lancering from angles and shotgunning from angles. You definitely have to be more accurate, and that can only be a good thing. The only thing I've noticed is we played this with all weapons enabled, and obviously these changes only apply to the shotgun and the lancer. This means that realistically, if we're going to be honest, you have to be a lot more accurate with the lancer, and the pistol you don't. You can still wildly miss with the pistol and all of the power weapons, so I'd like to see these changes also applied to everything in the game. I think that all the guns should be accurate. There shouldn't be guns in the game where you miss and get hits. That, to me, in a shooting game, just seems obvious. So the actual magnetism, how did it feel? Because there's different strength changes from 0 to 4.5 meters, etc., and different changes. To me, it felt like I had to be more accurate. It felt like I was missing shots in a good way. Like I was missing shots that I shouldn't have hit. Like I would miss a shot, I would rewatch the footage back, and I missed, and there was no magnetism giving me, you know, extra pellets. If I aimed and hit 2, I'd get 2. It wouldn't magnetize and give me 5 and then chunk the guy. So that's good. Hip firing feels a ton harder. Rightly so. I'm going to have to get used to more or less putting the barrel in the direction of the character again, rather than just in its rough direction and magnetism taking the wheel, let's be honest. There was a lot more misses. Again, that was beneficial. Nobody should be missing and hitting somebody in a shooting game, especially a competitive one. We've also got the randomness of shots that were removed. Blind firing over cover did feel a lot better. Although, I'll be honest, there aren't many places in the game where you actually slide to cover and just blind fire around. Most of the time it's a back A or a quick pop shot. So I didn't really notice this one too much. Now when I tried it one-on-one just to test it, I did definitely notice it. I personally didn't get in a scenario where I would use the blind fire over cover because it just didn't happen. That's just the way sometimes the testing goes. But it definitely is not random. It goes to the same location every time when we tested it, and again, that's obviously a good thing. Back A's do seem more beneficial. It's kind of difficult to relentlessly back A on a keyboard and mouse, but from my testing, the back A's feel good. Personally, I kind of back A in a way that it's maybe a bit of a slower one, and it's kind of more guaranteed anyway, so I normally hit my back A's, but this one is, from what I've read from the community, what people played on stream with me, they all noticed that the back A's feel a ton better. The next change was sort of the back A off a piece of cover as well, where the initial shot would go sort of, again, in a set direction. That always now goes in that set direction, and I noticed that one, so that was a good change. It didn't really impact my gameplay in too many ways, but I did notice that it was more accurate, and that can only be a good thing, because then you can be consistent, you can, if there's consistency, you can work on that and get better and expected results, and the expected results are going to be like repeatable. The change of the actual spread up close, I didn't really notice it too much. You were still chunking people, which I'll get onto in a second. But the long range sort of poke, because there's a slightly tighter spread, I did notice that from long range, I was able to land more pellets from the same shots than I was previously. Meaning, if I was just able to see someone's sort of upper body in the distance and I'd hard aim it, I might only get 1 or 2 pellets. Now, The aim's actually accurate, and I'm getting 3 to 4, sometimes more from long distance, and it's keeping them more red from a distance. Now, people are probably going to dislike that, but you need multiple playstyles in a game for it to become, you know, not just skilled, because then the other person's got to think about what the other guy can do. Or we could hard aim me down, he could hip fire, he could strafe me, you know. Right now, that's not really the case in the game. It's pretty much 1-2 shots or a gib. So I'm adding more playstyles to the game, like longer range left trigger is good. I would not add any more to the left trigger personally, like any more distance on the downs or anything, because we don't want this to become a 2-shot down game like Gears 2, or a long range poke game like Title Update 6 on Gears 2, if anyone remembers. But it is a big step in the right direction, and that's a good thing, but I wouldn't push the poke up anymore. What I would do to sort of make the game favour poke in a way is not up the poke, is lower the gib. And again, I'll touch on that in a second. The next thing that they talked about was there was no Nasher flinch in Nasher on Nasher fights. Now, personally, all I can say is this. Sometimes it's when you're hard aiming your shotgun, you get kicked up into the air. This doesn't happen anymore. And I obviously didn't notice it because it wasn't there. And that flinch is super irritating, and I don't really see the need for it to be in there, and I'm glad it's gone. The next thing they changed was the actual movement. Now, the slip speed was 650 on live. It's now 600. People have been telling me that the game feels slow. I've read the Gears forums, and they say the game feels slow. I'm just going to be honest with my feedback. I felt zero difference. The game is still up A's, it's still Gibbs, and it's still what I would call Gears 5 gameplay. I saw some big content creators coming out saying the game feels like a mixture between Gears 1 and Gears 2. I just say I disagree. Let's just keep it at that. I don't feel like this game feels anything like Gears 1 and Gears 2. This update is a healthy step in the right direction. Now, I'm not saying that my idea for the game is better than somebody else's. I'm just throwing my 2 cents in there. Personally, I really, really dislike, and what bugs me and what turns my friends off the game is you sign in and you play for an hour or two, and after an hour or two, you've been hit by that many up A's, that many one-shots, that the one-shot doesn't feel meaningful. A gib in Gears of War used to be a big thing. If you chunked somebody in Gears 1, you were like, oh, he's out of the fight. You know, he's actually dealt with. That was a big moment. Nowadays, every single kill is basically a gib. And what that does have, forget balance and forget all of that, it does have a knock-on effect of that sort of adrenaline that's released, and that sort of dopamine of that gib. That's what it used to be. You'd have these long range shotgun fights, or sorry, not long range, you'd have these long extended shotgun fights in Gears 1. It would go on, and then you'd finally gib in, and you'd be like, yes, right, he's out of the fight. Nowadays, every single kill is basically a gib, that when you get one, you don't even feel anything. You don't think to yourself, whoa, I blew that guy up. You just, you don't really think anything of it. You don't really down somebody and then play around the downs. I'm not sure one-shot down should come back, but I'm just saying that because most of the kills are gibs, all of these changes that have happened, I personally struggle to notice for a couple reasons. The slide speed, I did notice it was slower, but it hasn't reached a point where it's slow enough that actually it changed how the game sort of plays. The exact quote from the dev stream was, the slide will always be the fastest movement option in the game, but we're trying to balance it from being a necessity to a choice. Well, basically, it kind of still is a necessity, especially with how the netcode works. Up A is king. It beats back A's in many, many occasions, even though it shouldn't be, just the way the netcode works. I would, again, slow it down. I don't think an up A should be the defining movement in Gears 5. That's just my opinion, right? I would personally slow it. If I want to push round cover, I'm more pushing round cover, and then once I've finished going round cover, I'm then doing a pop shot. What's happening now is you're shooting as you're going round cover because there's so much speed. Personally, if I was playing the game, I would keep maybe the slip speed from 600. I'd knock it down to 550. and I'd get rid of the boost entirely. That's probably not going to happen, but that's my feedback. Everyone that I speak to gets very, very bored of spending hours on hours and hours getting slip speed one shot. So there are some other ways that you could adjust this. If we talk about the gib range, and I won't go on about this for too long, I'll keep it short. Basically, the gib range means that all of these changes you've done to the movement, to the poke, to the strafe are kind of meaningless. And I don't mean that in a rude way. I mean that you've done some fantastic work with all of this that you've done, but the end result is still pretty much some dude gets chunked, whether it be from slightly further away because of the extra poke, or they get hit by less bullets, or they land a little bit more bullets because they're more accurate. But the end result of the fight is still some guy coming at you with some good pace or a bit of movement, bit of wall bouncing, and he's just going to one-shot gib you. If you're in a 2v1, you're basically screwed. The players can now go wide on you with the extra poke, and also they have the gib. And I don't really have any tools to fight that inside of the gib range. If I roll back and keep my distance, I'm going to get out-poked. And if I try to play it short and dodge out of the way, the netcode's going to happen. They're going to shoot me where I was, which I have an entire video on, which is one of the main issues in the game that needs to be fixed. But the gib just blows people up. All I can say, and I'm just giving my honest feedback if you're interested, the best experience I had, even when the flashbangs were at launch and even when everything was crazy with the Lancers, was 4.11. They really, really shrunk that gib range, and every single person that came into my stream and on my YouTube was like, whoa, I'm having fun. Because suddenly the guy that up-A'd blind didn't just blow you up. He would just be outside a chunk range, and then you could return shot him or back A him. And you'd be put a little bit red because his shot landed, but it didn't gib you. You could strafe side to side, and even if somebody did clip you with that sort of dodgy netcode where I'm here, but I get hit here, even with that situation, it was miles improved, because when I did get clipped, it wasn't I've been gibbed. Again, lowering the gib range a good amount, so there's actually a thought process in your brain of, do I want to poke this guy down? Do I want to try 2 to 3 shot him down? Do I want to go wide on him because he's red and down him? Or do I want to try steam in and gib him? That is the ideal game for me. So what I would suggest as my feedback is, all these changes are really, really good. I would really lower the gib range. If you don't want to touch the slip speed and the up A speed because you're nervous that the other side of the community will be up in arms, fair enough, keep it the way it is. But lower the gib range, and what I recommend then is totally removing the delay off the roadie run. So when you hold the spacebar or the A button, you begin to roadie run straight away, so it feels much more responsive. And when you then come out of the roadie run, you can instantly shoot. Being able to roadie run strafe, or just being able to have that thing in your mind of, you know what, I'm going to sprint at this guy and blow him up with a lower gib range, that would be ideal. Now, if you remove the roadie run delay right now and have this massive gib range, it's going to be a fiesta. So I would say only do that if you're going to lower the gib. So that's my feedback. I think the Lancer up close and maybe the fall-off damage, it's still too strong. I had people saying the Lancer's fixed, it's now a support weapon. I fairly disagree. I'm not starting any drama. I still think the Lancer is an unbelievably potent weapon. Still when you're against multiple people, there's nothing you can do. So, here's what I would say as my closing statement on the balance feedback is, I think it's a great step in the right direction. My main concern is all of these brilliant things you're doing are getting hidden by the massive gib range and the roadie run sort of shot delay and the netcode. So to keep it simple with the netcode, I'm still getting these issues where 220 ping players, I'm trying to strafe left and right, so we're all trying to be more accurate, and that's a good thing. But when I sidestep to the left on my screen and he shoots where I was, and we're still both on low ping, That's frustrating, because then it feels like all of these changes are a little bit meaningless, to be frank with you, because there's no point changing everything in the game to be this super accurate pixel perfect shooter if there are still many scenarios where effectively the netcode is king. And I've had clips of today a 300 ping player just flick shotting me when I'm wall bouncing and I'm nowhere near him. Now, am I saying that the game should be tested with 300 ping players? No. This happens on 20 ping as well, but the point is, somebody that's lagging that much, 180 plus ping, I'm okay with a little bit of screen difference. I'm not, I know, it's a video game, I'm not expecting perfection, but when somebody is definitely lagging, like I'm on 20 ping, he's on 100 or 120, I feel like what happens on my screen should be what's going on, not his. Whether that's lag compensation and stuff, and I know that's a different topic, but that's my feedback. Really good changes. I applaud you for sticking with the game and still doing the changes, because many people might have just binned the game off and moved on. But I feel like, if I'm being frank, that most of the changes are hard to really experience, because most of the gameplay is still up A, movement speed, slip speed, one-shot gibs. And that's the feedback all of my Discord give me. I have a community Discord with about 100 plus people in. I've got people that tune into my stream. That's the feedback I get, and they say that these changes look good, Z, but it's still Gears 5. So that's my feedback. Hopefully that helps, or something along the lines. Thanks for listening, and thanks for doing this.